Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
So welcome to a special edition of the Counselling Tutor Podcast. I'm Rory and Ken is taking a well-earned break, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Kelly Budd from CPCAB, a counselling training organisation, and Meg Moss from the National Counselling and Psychotherapeutic Society, the NCPS. And we're going to be talking about the very serious topic of the integrity of counselling training. So if you're a student or you're thinking of starting training, this podcast really is for you, so you can get on the right path and not make what could be quite expensive and emotionally hurtful mistakes as you move through your training. So first of all, Kelly, who are CPCAB? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and who are CPCAB?
Hi, Rory. Thank you for the introduction. So CPCAB, so we are the Counselling and Psychotherapy Central Awarding Body. And essentially what that means is that as an awarding organisation, we're approved by the UK regulators and the Department for Education to design, assess and award qualifications that meet national standards that are recognised by other training institutions in the UK, but also abroad as well. So the UK standards are recognised. There are lots of awarding organisations in the UK, so we're one of many. And many awarding organisations, as your learners will know, award counselling qualifications. CPCAB is slightly different in that we're the only awarding body that specialises in counselling qualifications. So, counselling qualifications and allied professions, so life coaching and supervision as well. But it's essentially, it's all we do. And we're staffed by counsellors and education professionals, and we're really embedded in the profession of counselling, and we care about its future, which is kind of the main reason why we're here today. As a AO, I will use the term awarding organisation, kind of representing this campaign with NCPS.
Well, that leads on to introducing Meg Moss, who's been on the podcast many times before, as you have, Kelly. So welcome, Meg, and just tell us a little bit about the NCPS. What is a professional body?
Thanks, Rory. And yeah, it's lovely to be back again. The NCPS, National Counselling and Psychotherapy Society, we are a professional body, as Rory says, for counsellors and psychotherapists across the UK. So starting from when you're a student, all the way through to when you retire eventually and, just want to stay with us and, carry on being interested in the profession. We have members kind of from every different stage of their career. So what we do is we provide things like ethical support. So we have a code of ethics that you will sign up to say that you agree to. So we provide support around that. We provide lots of other membership benefits, kind of guidance. We provide, so say, for example, you're setting up in private practice. We have loads and loads of guidance for practitioners there. We have good practice guidance around things like working with children and young people, gender and sexual diversity guidance, all sorts of different things from different places within the profession that would be really helpful to you as a practitioner. And we've got lots and lots of resources, things like CPD resources, and even the kind of really boring things like forms for filling out client hours or your CPD log, or anything you can think of. That's kind of what we're here for, to support people on their counselling journey. And we work with organisations across the profession, and also kind of allied sectors within mental health to promote the value of counselling and psychotherapy, and make sure that one of the main things that we're doing at the moment is kind of campaigning around stable and well-paid work for counsellors and psychotherapists, making sure that there are ample opportunities for you to use your skills in a way that you are appropriately recompensed for doing so. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So I guess what we've got is a meeting of a professional body, as outlined by Meg, who was talking about supporting and overseeing those people who are maybe student counsellors and qualified counsellors from, I guess from student right through to retirement, a very supportive organisation. And Kelly from CPCAB, who are an awarding body who are invested in quality training of students to become qualified counsellors. So, Kelly, what is the focus of this joint campaign that yourself and the NCPS have come together to promote?
I think probably at its core, it's best summed up to essentially be about the importance of human connection. So human connection and what it brings to counselling training from the very beginning all the way up through to kind of practitioner level and beyond, and also human connection within counselling practice. And for us, the campaign is exploring why that's so vital in the training process and why that's vital in practice. What does it bring that creates the therapeutic relationship? And there's going to be a lot of different activity across the year of this campaign. But one of the things that we're really focused on doing is understanding from trainees and from practitioners and from tutors as well, about their lived experiences of human connection and the kind of learning that comes from relationships throughout their training, and what benefit that brings to their practice when they're actually working with real life clients. Because at the end of the day, that's what the training is for, is to be able to create a relationship that heals. Absolutely. And,
there's no secret to to why therapy works. It's been known for a long time. There was some research done in the 2000s called Common Factors, and it was a huge piece of research. And we know from the output of that what works, and a big part of what works is the therapeutic relationship, which really brings me over to Meg. We talked about the common factors aspects of it, and I wonder what part of this features really in your input into this campaign.
Yeah, so from our end, what we're really trying to do is to promote counselling and psychotherapy to commissioners. So people like the NHS, people like people who commission therapy and therapeutic interventions in education. So that will probably be a cross-departmental thing. And what we're trying to say is, based on, the common factors research that you mentioned, and research that's been done kind of over the decades since then, really drilling down much further into that original common factors research, is saying the thing that makes therapy effective, or like the major thing, is that relationship between the therapist and the client. And it's also about other things that I think are really relevant to that human connection. It's about not about the modality that you use, for example. There is an element of that to it. It's not about the way in which you work. It's also about how you adapt to your client. So it's about having this connection with them that will allow you to, see what it is that they need and what they're bringing, either based on their feedback or based on your kind of observations of them in the therapy room. Is that connection feeling like they're benefiting from say, this way of working? Maybe they'll benefit from, some chair work, or maybe they'll benefit from something creative, or maybe they want to do more kind of in-depth talking about stuff that happened in childhood, or maybe they want to do some more kind of cognitive stuff. But that's part of your role in terms of common factors research as a therapist, and that's how you make that effective. And that's not the kind of thing that is replicable. And one of the other things that I've been finding really interesting, and sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, is the neuroscience behind human connection, and things like the hormones that we create when we connect with another human being, and the pathways in our brain that allow that to happen. And I'm going to be doing some more looking into this, actually. I've been speaking to a neuroscientist about the brain science behind human connection. And again, that's not something that you can replicate. That's a human thing. So what we're just trying to package up is this really comprehensive ask for commissioners and the government, saying, these are the things that you need to do. And we're not saying don't use technology, because there are some ways that technology can really benefit. Things like I'm drawing a blank now. There definitely are. It's not my particular area of expertise, but there are ways that we can use tech to benefit the therapy. But how do we do that sensitively? How do we do it thoughtfully and appropriately? And how do we make sure that we're protecting that human connection, which is the thing that makes therapy effective?
Yeah, so what I'm really hearing here is that the research, both the common factors research and neuroscience research, point to one thing, and that is the quality of the therapeutic relationship. It's a person-to-person endeavour, and while technology may be able to enhance that, ultimately it is two people in the room, or as I said when I used to teach, two people in one room or online space for the benefit of one person. It's a human-to-human connection. So, I mean, I guess, Meg, is this what has driven this joint venture between yourself and CPCAB?
Yeah, it is. So for the NCPS, it came... the idea of this campaign has been quite a number of years really bubbling around in the back of my head as we've kind of been seeing this increase in digitization, the increase in medicalization. We have at the moment in NHS talking therapies, we have really very few different modalities that you can access, right? So one of the things that I've long been thinking is, based on, again, kind of common factors, people need to feel motivated about the therapy that they're going to have. So having access to a range of different therapies is going to bring more people in, make them feel that there is something there for them. Lots of people don't identify with wanting CBT for whatever reason. Some people love it. Some people are like, that's not for me. And perhaps if we were able to offer them something different, we'd see, the data coming out of NHS talking therapies in terms of effective therapy, we'd see that increase. But then I had been reading about digital mental health apps being pushed through NICE guidelines last year. And I thought, you know what, this is the beginning of a slippery slope if we don't grab hold of what's important right now and say, apps are fine. Some people will get what they want from them, but please don't commission hundreds of digital mental health apps and now, please don't commission NHS mental health chatbots to the detriment of actual human therapists, where you're spending your money on this kind of first line support that actually isn't going to be therapeutically effective for a lot of people, and you're not commissioning human-centered therapy. I think it's really important that someone is now saying, kind of, hold on, you need to make sure that you're still doing that and you're still investing in those human-centered roles before you get too far down the track and there's no therapist there for you to actually call upon.
Yeah, so
that's where we're going.
So I guess what I'm hearing here is that the NHS probably is the biggest supplier of, if you want to use that term, the biggest provider, probably is a better term, of therapy, and the commissioners are people employed to move money and to use that money to commission therapy. And what I'm hearing you say is before you go down the road of digitisation using apps, or indeed just using one modality of therapy, where we know from the research that actually it's not actually the modality that makes a difference, it's the relationship. Have a think about that. Just pause a second and think about the diversity of therapy and the fact there's a huge amount of therapists out there that can be of help, that might be a better solution than maybe investing in some very expensive electronic app that someone can tap on the phone at home.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about evidence-based, clinically effective therapy, all the while ignoring that the one thing really that makes therapy clinically effective is the relationship. So actually what we should be doing really is just allowing people to have choice of therapist and choice of therapy. And that would make a world of difference. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm moving my hand behind the studio screen here because I'm totally agreeing with you. So, I mean, I guess that brings us back to how therapists are trained. So, Kelly, what is CPCAB's focus within this campaign?
I think kind of taking off from where Meg has just been speaking is CPCAB and NCPS have been spending a lot more time together in the last few years. And when we understood where NCPS were kind of going with this real championing of informed choice around therapy and making sure that humans and a paid human workforce are really kind of championed in commissioning, we were able to kind of step up and say, actually, that really aligns with something that we're also seeing in the training landscape at the moment that we're equally concerned about, because for us, for that meaningful human connection to be available in the workplace, the training needs to supply that in a really effective way. So one of the things that we have been aware of, I mean, let's kind of go back many, many years. We've always been aware, and I know that Rory, you and I have spoken about it, about the, you can go on Google and you can look for counselling training, or go on a Groupon, that's probably me showing my age, and see kind of train to be a counsellor in a weekend, in your own time, online, all digital, just log on, scroll through this workbook, watch this PowerPoint presentation if you're lucky, or read this workbook, fill in this multiple choice questionnaire and get your counselling certificate. We know that those have been around for a very long time. And for the most part, our community, and we see it on Counselling Tutor a lot, used to be really good at self-policing those sort of courses. If somebody came on there and said, hi, I've seen this course and it's free training and it says I can be a counsellor in 4 days, or I can do it in a weekend and I'll be able to see clients and put a label on my door the next week. People have been really good at saying, yeah, that's probably not going to train you well enough to be an effective counsellor. So it always kind of had its own way of self-monitoring. But we've seen a shift since the pandemic. I think something happened during COVID where obviously a lot of training had to move online. People learned really, really quickly. And awarding organisations such as ourselves and many others have actually continued the availability of online training, because we've seen that it has it has a lot of benefits, like inclusivity for candidates who can't travel to a centre. It has a great deal of value in terms of providing genuine training opportunities, particularly when people wouldn't have been able to do it in the past. But this idea of online training has kind of allowed these train to be a counsellor in the weekend or do this distance learning course to kind of creep in through the mist. And there's now kind of a level of confusion around what online live synchronous training can do, and that it can be equal to, and sometimes even better than, live in the classroom training, but only when it's live, only when there's still human connection within it. And that's a very different training environment to put your bank details in here and do this online workbook. You absolutely brilliantly, you won't ever have to see a tutor. You won't ever have to spend time with peers. No, you don't need to do skills practice. Don't worry. You can do all of the guided learning hours that we market without ever having attended a taught session. And that is growing. And it's really growing. And it's kind of seeping in around the edges. And particularly where we're seeing it having the impact is at level 2 and 3. Because often candidates who have reached level 4, level 5, they understand counselling by that point. They kind of get that to be a good counsellor, you're probably going to have to sit in front of somebody and counsel them. Or you're going to have to get feedback from a peer or feedback from a tutor or develop yourself. So the higher levels are kind of still continuing to produce or to generate the kind of training that they need to. But it's almost kind of those early learners, the ones that maybe don't yet know enough about counselling to know to look for certain things in their counselling training. And they're signing up, they're paying their money, or they are using their government funding, which is one of the things that I want to come to fund entirely asynchronous, not live counselling training, and then trying to progress with that and being turned away at the door of the next level.
Yes, and counselling training, for those people who are listening who are thinking, well, I fancy, becoming a counsellor, moving into helping professions. It's always been, and should remain so in my view, an apprenticeship where people start and develop those skills, not just the academic side, not just the writing. It's not psychology where you can critique a theory. You may have to do that within training, but you've actually got to practice those human to human skills. And I think the courses you're talking about is where someone pays maybe £800 or £1,000 UK pounds, and what they get is a workbook, a series of videos, and they never ever see a tutor or never do any skills practice, never get any critique, are not supported. And what is the impact on trainees of this kind of singular form of training where people are just left to their own devices?
I think the one thing I want to just pick up from what you said, very much like Meg, we're not discounting the additional enhanced benefit of asynchronous learning. So watching videos, doing reflective learning in your own time, reading, absolutely brilliant. And in CPD and qualifications and things like that, great, continue to do that. But it's not a replacement for core training. Because what we're seeing in terms of the impact on learners is we're seeing people approaching the next level of qualification and presenting a certificate to their training provider that at face value looks like a direct equivalent to somebody who's done live training. And they are then going on to a level 4 course, sitting in the classroom and realizing they're the only person there that's never done skills practice before. They're the only person there that's never had feedback from their tutor. They've submitted something online and they've just got something that says 2 spelling errors as their feedback. That's not good enough to train to be a counsellor.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing as an awarding body is we're seeing a lot of very, very disappointed candidates.
Yeah.
A lot of very rightfully so angry candidates that are coming to us and they're saying, well, why won't you let me go on your course? Or they're coming to us and they're suddenly realizing that they've essentially been misinformed, duped, and they've spent money or they've used their government funding for a level 2. And they can't then use that funding again for a good level 2 because it's gone. So, or they've taken out a loan, heaven forbid, for their level 3. but it can be an entirely distance learning, and they try and go on a level 4 with it and get turned away.
So you could have a situation where someone listening to this may get government funding, do a course online, think that it's a course that will allow them to progress.
Yeah.
They may go then to the next course provider and say, I'd like to progress. And the course provider looks at the qualification and says, actually, this isn't the path to become a therapist. At which point, I just don't know how I'd feel about that. If that was me, I've spent my money, I've spent my government loan, I'm now can't progress. I've got to start again with my own money. Or somebody actually manages to get on a course and sits in a group of people and realise that actually they're way behind the rest of their peers in terms of skills practice. That actually, you know, their peers are far more advanced, far more skilled. And this isn't anything to do with the tutoring. This is to do with the path that the students has took to get there. Now, I've got to ask this question, Kelly. I just really have to ask this question. Obviously, if you go to a barber and say, do I need a haircut? The barber will always say, yes, you do. So you're a training provider and obviously you have a business. So I guess I'd be failing in my duty as host to say, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? How would you address that?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any denying that we're an awarding body.
Yeah.
And we've got a vested business interest in people doing our counselling training. But I think something that CPCAB has maybe kind of failed on in the past is you won't have seen us do a campaign before, because for the most part we're quite coy about what we offer. And we kind of hope to some degree that the quality of our training speaks for itself, and it does. But I think what this is about is this is something bigger than just us. Because what I will say is there are a range of other awarding organisations out there delivering really, really good quality counselling training besides us. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say I like CPCAB. I chose to work here. But I did, maybe don't tell my boss this, but I did some CPCAB training in my practitioner route and some from other awarding bodies. I liked both. They were great. But if we are the awarding body that specialises in counselling, we care about the profession. So my question is, if not us, who? Who is going to stand up right now and help learners make informed choices about their training when there's so much aggressive marketing going on from these organisations that will happily misinform learners?
Yeah. And I have to say I held a vested interest. I visited CPCAB with Ken, who you often hear on the podcast, and we were made very welcome. And we were overwhelmed with both the passion, dedication, and attention to detail of the training. Which is why we're always happy to meet up with anybody from CPCAB, because we know how much effort is put in, as we do when we speak to our friends at NCPS. So, Meg, what's the focus, NCPS's focus on this campaign? And also, two questions: what are the emerging trends? The focus of the trends.
I will answer those questions, but I also just wanted to very quickly add to stuff that Kelly was saying. For one, I kind of just wanted to add about from the NCPS, I can't believe I said NCS, that's who we used to be, no longer. We also have people coming to us who have done distance learning training, and we can't accept that onto our register. So that's another thing to be really careful of. No professional standards authority accredited register will be able to accept training that is fully asynchronous distance learning. So it's really, really important that people know that, because we do have people who get to even, they have done a level 4 online and they get to us and we have to turn them away. And it must be heartbreaking for them, the time and the money they've put into that. So if you are thinking of going down that route, I would say please reconsider. The other thing I wanted to kind of chime in on was just talking about what you do in a level 2 and level 3. And even when I did my level 2, we did skills practice. And I remember how awkward and difficult it was.
Yeah.
But it's so important. It was just reflection. And it was also, we did those exercises where you're not allowed to ask a question, and things like that. And that was just at level 2. And then at level 3, obviously it got so much more intense. And I don't know where I would be without all of the personal work I did at level 3, with even in just check-ins and check-outs with other people. And Kelly and I have had long conversations about how painful that can be, but how transformative that can be. So wholeheartedly recommend, like, just do it. Even if you don't want to become a counsellor, do level 2, do level 3, go through the pain of that training with peers, with other people, because you will come out knowing yourself infinitely better than you did when you went in. And that's something that's so important when you go on to level 4. You need to have done that. Really, you do. Just talking to someone who's done that themselves. And to your question, Rory, kind of what are the emerging trends? In terms of AI stuff, in terms of digital stuff, is that what you mean?
Well, yes. I mean, how AI is kind of stormed into the public consciousness very, very quickly. It seems to be a conversation that a lot of people are having. So is there an emerging trend in terms of AI in therapy? And, if so, what are the possible impacts? What's the possible impact on the public for providing just AI therapy?
Yeah, so there is a fair amount going on when you think about what the public are doing in terms of AI therapy, kind of in air quotes. You have all these different therapeutic chatbots that are built on a particular modality. So you'll have a chatbot that is built around the principles of CBT, or built around the principles of, I don't know, Socratic questioning, or kind of those types of things. And there are some huge issues with those types of things, especially when you think about, you're putting your own personal information into those, and really, really kind of some deep and dark personal information into those chatbots. You don't know where it's going to resurface and come out again. There is a wonderful human called Kath Nibbs, who, if you're remotely interested in looking at kind of harms in therapy and online therapy stuff and therapy and tech, she's really, really, really good person to follow. Give her a little plug there. And she can talk about it much more fluently than I can. But there are some real issues there. And obviously, there's this kind of like, I kind of see it as active journaling, I think, more than anything. Having spoken to people who have trialed that a little bit, it's not the same as obviously being in a room with a person and having those kind of conversations and those connections, or even those not conversations. So the power of silence in the therapy room is a huge one, and that's not something that's, how would you address that in a chatbot? That's not what that's kind of there for. Obviously, so that's kind of happening, and then we have therapists looking at how they can use AI and tech within their practice. So things like using it to, you record your sessions are transcribed. You put those transcriptions into a AI, kind of large language model AI, and ask it to summarize that. And some people are asking it to kind of make a diagnosis. I don't think many people are going to be doing that.
So between AI and, as we said, Groupon courses, so on one hand you've got, I'll tell all my story to my computer and hope my computer can help me, or I'll see someone who's done a 3-day course on Groupon where they've had to tick a few boxes. We are dealing with, or working with, clients with emotional issues, possibly life-ending issues in some cases. I don't know any therapist that I've ever spoken to who's never sat in front of someone who's considering not being around next week. And it takes an incredible amount of skill, an incredible amount of humanity and training to be able to work with that process. So between the kind of automation and the I'll be a counsellor in a week or a weekend. Kelly, do you think there's a public protection issue here? Do you think there's an issue to the general public?
I think there is. I think there's, as Meg said earlier, the idea of a slippery slope. I think the decline in human connection in counselling training and the possibility that somebody might get all the way through their training hours and to the point of knocking on the door of a professional association, still not quite getting that they're not competent enough yet to be working with clients, is a real worry. I think the idea of the regulation of the counselling profession is a much, much bigger topic that we won't have time to discuss.
It's a whole new podcast, that.
It's a whole new podcast. But it's the case where it's always been, there's nothing stopping a member of the general public from putting a sign on the door that says counsellor and inviting clients in. And that's one thing. But for somebody to believe that they are fully trained as a counsellor whilst having never actually seen a client and putting a sign on their door, there's something just more insidious about that. It's the organisations that are benefiting financially from that type of dangerous illusion don't care that person is going to be seeing somebody who might be thinking of taking their own life. And that is shocking to me. So for us, it definitely is a public protection issue because there are organisations who are cutting the human connection out of counselling training and allowing those people to believe that they're going to be great counsellors and go out there and potentially do harm. So from a training point of view, that is a slippery slope and that's worrying. And I think the one thing, because you brought it back in the summary there, Rory, about the idea of Groupon courses, is the one thing to flag is that it's not just on Groupon anymore.
No.
It's seeing people advertising 250, 300 guided learning hours and saying, and as regulated awarding organisations or as people with legitimacy behind them as normal training centres. And you go there and you get 10 guided learning hours. Guided learning is the live teaching, but you're paying for 250 for 300, but you're not getting it.
Yeah.
There's also an issue about protecting the people who are being misled. So the clients and the people who really want to be good counsellors and are not getting that chance.
Absolutely. And there's an issue of context here. As someone who taught counselling for 10 or 12 years, a lot of the learning wasn't just out of the books or, even in the groups. A lot of the learning was when a student would say to me, so this is what it says in the book. This is what we've come up in the group. Actually, what really is it? And I would say, well, from my experience and speaking to other colleagues, it could go in this direction, or you might want to think of that. This is the apprenticeship part of therapy. It's about saying to someone, yes, you could respond like that, or you could intervene like that, or you could think ethically like this, but actually, let's have a look at another way of doing it. And that can only be done by a tutor or tutors sitting at the front of a classroom, speaking directly, and also, I think, mirroring and showing by example what a professional therapist is.
Yeah,
that's the problem, because you have to see it's about mirroring, and someone saying that's what a professional therapist is. We don't always get it right. I mean, I never always got it right, but generally speaking, just to get the view of someone who does it, you wouldn't want to go on your holidays on an aeroplane flown by a pilot who never spoke to another pilot. You know, you can imagine the pilot getting home. Where did you learn to fly? Well, I did it on my Nintendo over the weekend. And I think I know where Lanzarote is, but if not, I can always use ChatGPT. They'll put me right. I'd be exiting off that aeroplane so fast it would be untrue. I'd be out the emergency exit. And, you know, all right, so that might be a very funny anecdote. But it comes down to the fact that this is life-changing for the people who come. Some people who come to your therapy room and sit in your seat, unbeknown to you as a therapist, may be making a decision whether they'll be around next week. And, you know, when clients don't come back, we sometimes think, well, perhaps it's not for them. It might be that they're not actually around to come back. It's a serious, serious business. It is like flying an aeroplane. It's a serious business. You have people's lives that you have to consider. And although, you know, you can't live their life for them, you have a professional obligation to be there for them. So Meg, what can people expect to see in this campaign between yourself and CPCAB? What's the thrust of the campaign, if I can use that term?
So we've got a number of things that we're doing, and I actually really want to plug the research first before I get told off by the people who are putting it together. We're doing some research. It is profession-wide, and we're really keen to hear from everybody, from students to practitioners. We will be writing a report based off that research, and that is looking at your experiences of training, what you found valuable in that training, and also your experiences of practice, and also your clients' experiences of your practice. And that will be used to inform our campaign work to government, and the campaign work that CPCAB are doing around the training, guide learning hours training that we've been talking about. So it's really, really important research. There will be a link in the show notes of this podcast. Please go to it. Please click it. Please fill it in. Really, really want your input. So there will be a report eventually that you can share. We have a large number of campaigning materials. So things like social media posts that you can share just with your networks to get this message out there. And we're going to be doing some filming with kind of experts in the field, lived experience experts, hopefully some kind of neuroscience stuff, just to really bring home the story of what's happening and what needs to happen, and just the impact that human connection has on people and why it's so important. So anything you see, share it. Brilliant.
Okay. And finally, Kelly, what can listeners of this podcast do about it? What is the call to action? I'm fired up by this. Really, I'm fired up by this. It's so important. What is the call to action? What can someone listening to this who might think, well, I've heard all this. This is a bit worrying. I need to find really good quality training. I want to do the best for the people I potentially want to serve. What can I do?
I think very much like Meg said, it's about engaging with the campaign. So follow us and follow NCPS on social media, raise awareness, engage in discussions with us and also with other people. So part of the message is about kind of informed choice. So we want people to have informed choice about the counselling they're going to go into as clients and the counselling training they're going into. And that really is done by word of mouth. So talk to people. When you see somebody ask, should I go and see this AI bot or should I go and see a proper counsellor? Ask them what it is that they're looking to get from their therapy. If you see somebody say, oh, I've got this course that says I can train to be a counsellor entirely online, say, well, what are the guided learning hours on it? Where's the funding coming from? Have you asked them about the progression routes for this training? Have you done your research? So that people are really understanding what they're getting themselves into and able to do things that actually meet their goals rather than take several dead ends. Absolutely. So it's about being active, working with us and talking to people about it.
So there you have it. If you're listening to this and you're thinking of training to be a counsellor, have a long think about what you've heard by Meg, who's part of a professional body, and Kelly, who's part of a training provider. If you want to find those links on the show notes that Meg mentioned, if you go to counsellingtutor.com, this special edition sits between episode 307 and 308, and it will be CPCAB NCS special edition podcast. And within that podcast, or on that page where the podcast is held, we will put the survey, we will put the show notes. And I guess if you've got any questions, just reach out to either CPCAB or NCS, Meg? NCPS, excuse me.
Yeah, drop us an email, hello@ncps.com, and we will reply.
Yeah, and contact at cpcab.co.uk and we will reply.
Well, as always, Meg and Kelly, always a joy speaking with you. An incredibly important topic for those who are starting that path of becoming a therapist. So Meg Moss from NCPS, the National Counselling and Psychotherapeutic Society, and Kelly Budd from CPCAB, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode by visiting counsellingtutor.com.